The story is entitled September 13. Mrs. Morris was returning from graveyard after paying tributes of love for the 20th time to her beloved husband Daniel Morris, who had left her when she was just 33. Eyes take more time to wink than the time to fly. Today Mrs. Morris is 53 years old woman, but she still looks like a vibrant bunch of miracles, all locked in her eyes, a center point of positive enthusiasm for so many who accompany her to St. Marcus Cemetery every year, holding a bunch of white lilies, making Mrs. Morris a silhouette with red roses in her hand. The only difference every year brings is an addition of a rose to her bunch and a few fine lines and wrinkles finding place on her snow-white face. People still talk about her beauty as a benchmark for many beauty lovers. Oh, they say, she was more white than snow, more soft than fur, and more tender than a feather. The whole Westminster had seen her in her wedding gown decades back. She got married to Daniel when she was just 19. What was Daniel's age then? He was 50. Shocking, right? Indeed, it was for the whole of Westminster. Mrs. Morris was then known as Sylvia all across. Has she gone nuts? That's what hundreds of lips had uttered. Frowns on the forehead of oldies, anxiety on her distant relatives. As Sylvia was an orphan, no one knows the identity of her parents. Some say her father was beheaded for murdering her mother. Some say they eloped and married. Some believe she was born of an unwed mother. Whatever the truth was, Sylvia got love from many. People loved her for her compassion, for her innocence, for all the care she extended to the old couple who had adopted her when she was just one. Daniel was a rich merchant and had a twin brother. They both looked many ways the same. The tone and tenor matched, the body built resembled, and so was the wheatish complexion and trimmed moustache they both carried. Silence dwelt in the village of Westminster when a rumour flooded the waves around that Daniel had fallen in love with Sylvia, who was 31 years younger to him. The whole of the village had an objection, a strong rebel against this very truth, except some malicious souls who never wanted Sylvia to be ever happy in life. They were joyous to hear that a 50-year-old man wants to marry a 19-year-old Sylvia, as she was the most eligible maiden in the whole of 50 villages as they talked about. Sylvia was more beautiful than Rose. Even Rose has a thorn, but she had no flaw. She was pious and virtuous. Whatever, Sylvia never wanted to marry. And she never wanted to marry Daniel. God knows what sinister design that old witch had, who they say lived in the deep dark recess of an oak tree, which was 200 years old. Sylvia was just 7 then, and she had gone to water the shrub of roses around that oak that very late evening. She was late that day, owing to her domestic calls. Hey, did I forget to mention she took care of the farmers' children as they retired to the fields in the morning until the sun set? And she had disappeared that very evening. For a week she was not found. And one day when she came back, she was smiling, holding a wreath of pansies and wearing a locket of emerald studded in gold. She swore unto God that she had met her parents, that she had met them in a beautiful dream. And when people of Westminster asked her where she had been the entire week, she failed to understand and firmly assured that she enjoyed a grand slumber. A clairvoyant claimed she was abducted by the queen of evil spirits who resided in the dark abyss of oak. God knows what the truth was. With the passage of time, people forgot the tale, and with the blooming of golden daffodils, Sylvia grew into a young pretty lass of 19. Daniel, as they say, had come to meet her in person, to propose her hand in marriage that evening. They were there in this room for a couple of minutes, with the whole of Westminster crowding outside the room, wondering what the rich merchant will do after being rejected by the beautiful snow-white Sylvia. But to their great surprise, when Sylvia opened the door, she bore a smile on her face and she declared it to the people of a village that she wanted to marry Daniel. "Oh, Sylvia, you can't commit suicide like that. He's a 50-year-old chap." "So what?" Sylvia had responded. "Now he's going to be my husband." The priest made them take the vow in marriage to be man and wife and bless them with the holy water. That very year, a civil war broke out, and all the sturdy men were called by the army to take the lead. Daniel had become the leader, being the oldest in experience and years. Victory fell in the lap of Westminster's people, and Daniel was declared as the hero of the town. Daniel Morris and his wife Sylvia Morris had been living peacefully together for years. They were together for 14 years. It was an awful midnight when Sylvia's waiting for a husband could never get him back to her. No one knows what happened, and after 6 months of his disappearance, Daniel was declared dead. His skull was identified with a token of remembrance, like his watch, a scarf, and necktie, and that skull skeleton was laid to rest with full funeral rites. No one knows about it, but in the dark, deep cell beneath the ground of the room, Sylvia and Daniel are heard talking. Sylvia laughed to her glory and said, "Gosh, taking white lilies every year on September 13 is so funny a ritual for me for last 20 years, Daniel. My heart jumps out of its closet dying to die in my own swirls of laughter." Daniel retorts, "Ha ha ha, I understand, my love, but that's what keeps us free from the sinister claws of the queen of evil spirits." That day, when Daniel had gone to meet Sylvia to ask her hand in marriage in that room, his words were, "Sweetheart, you are like my daughter. I am a 50-year-old father to you. But that very day, when I released you from the queen's claws at 7, she had taken a promise from me. I would be your protective shield and would take care of you as a parent, as a father. She made my twin brother captive in exchange of you. Sylvia, I had to marry you for the world to see us as man and wife for each other. But we know what we had been for all these years for each other. I had to kill myself for the world and be underground so as to keep up to the words of the Queen. Otherwise, Westminster would have been burnt to ashes by her. Thank you, Sylvia, for your huge sacrifice for the people of Westminster. And today is once again September 13. 10 years from now, the Queen of Evil Spirits would release my brother too. I do not know I would be alive by then, but hope September 13 comes one more time, as it's only the day I walk under the earth in a tunnel with a distance of 250 kilometers to meet my brother every year. And I'm ready for my journey now.